My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of The Loved Ones. Now, this is a movie that lots of people haven't seen, but I watched it many years ago and absolutely loved it. So I just rewatched it for the first time, and I have to say, this is still a damn good movie. If you're into horror movies, it's an absolute must watch. But I was kind of worried about it at first because I don't think it starts in the best way. I think the first act of this movie is pretty weak. The beginning scene of the car crash just lacks any bit of impact, and then you get introduced to the characters, and I just found it to be very weak, and it doesn't allow the characters to stand out at all. And then we got Lola, who approaches this guy and asks him out to prom, and he says no. And it just feels like there was no build up to that. Like, I kind of wish the movie had a 5 minute sequence before that where you could see these characters in the school setting a bit more. And the character introduction to Brent just isn't subtle at all. You see the scars on his stomach, you've got his mom being like, it's not your fault, right? And it's just very obvious. It's very blatant, obvious character setup. And I know it comes into play later on, but the fact that he wears a razor around his neck was just stupid to me. I actually did find that his character was set up to be a bit better because it just feels a lot more authentic. In one scene, you just see that he's a bit awkward, he's goofy, and you have a better understanding of who this character at the start is without them beating you over the head with it. But that all said, after we get introduced to the characters and Brent gets kidnapped, that's when the movie becomes freaking great. So this movie is about this guy who says no to this girl who asks him to prom. So her and her dad kidnap him and they have a private prom at her place. It's kind of like Misery to a certain degree, but it just progresses in the most ultra-violent ways that it really allows it to stand out. To say it's just disturbing and horrific, I feel like doesn't do this movie justice, so I feel like I have to say that this movie is indeed fucked up. Not just on a visual level where you can just see how brutal it is, but on a psychological level, it's truly just unlike anything else. Like, right when you think that you've hit just how fucked up this movie is going to get, then the last act comes into play, and you're just like, wait, what? And this movie is really effective. It's super intense throughout, but it's just something else entirely in that last act. You feel a certain hopelessness that just really stays with you, and you just can't help but be invested in what's going on. I also think this movie was very smart in what to show and what not to show. The director uses restraint, and I think he cuts at the perfect moment sometimes, and he relies on the sound when needed. So this movie is very well directed by Sean Bourne. He does direct this movie incredibly well, and he does give this movie the proper amount of tension that's needed. Like, my palms were sweaty, mom's spaghetti, and it does get under your skin. Now, there is a subplot in this movie of his friend Jamie going on a date, and it really doesn't add all too much to the movie, and typically I would complain about it, but I actually don't mind that it exists within this movie because, first of all, the movie's already an hour and 20 minutes long. If you take too much out, then it's not even at future lengths. And because so much of what you're watching is incredibly dark and disturbing, I did find that this subplot provided some much needed levity. Because if it's brutal and tension filled all the time, sometimes you just want a break for that. And I think the movie was wise to include this subplot, even though not really adding much to this movie on a narrative level, or even thematically. Like, I don't know if the director's trying to say something using this subplot. It doesn't come across that way, but I'm still glad it's here. There are some moments of dark humor that works really well, and the performances are all quite good. Xavier Samuel is good as Brent. It's not the liveliest performance, but I'm okay with that because it allows the real stars to shine, which is Robin McLevy, who plays Lola, and she is just excellent in this movie. You can just see how damaged of a person she is, but she's also terrifying, and the whole good girl act that she pulls off it's infuriating. It's a really amazing performance, and she is just so evil in this movie. Then you've also got John Brampton, who I thought was really good. So the cast as a whole does a good job. And there is some emotion present. Not just the horrific stuff, but even at the end, you are invested in this character getting through everything. You do want to see him make it till the end. But the whole idea of just how much can a person go through and be scarred with and still manage to be okay has a lot of impact. I was kind of worried that they were going to go for the dark ending because near the end of the movie, they're kind of making it look like something is going to happen, and I'm just like, oh, please don't happen. I don't like that at all. And thankfully they didn't, but they did kind of lead you into thinking that would happen. There was one moment where the character acts stupid, but it's an acceptable form of stupid. It's not to the point where it infuriates you. It's believable. And like I'm going to talk about spoilers after I give my rating, but this is a movie that if you haven't seen, I highly recommend. Just know that it's not for the faint of heart. It is a dark, tense, horrific, fucked up movie. When I say that, I truly mean it. I don't want to give anything away of what happens in this movie, but trust me, it's just, oh my god. Sean Burns directs this movie incredibly well. The performances are good, especially Robin McLevy. And even though it doesn't start off in the best way, it finds its footing very fast and it's effective at what it sets out to do. So I'm going to go ahead and give The Loved Ones a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, I'm going to talk about some spoilers here, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch this section. So there was a scene where they're sitting at the table eating chicken, and she's trying to get him to lick her fingers, and it's just this really dark scene that kind of reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And there's also a scene where he's trying to get away, so he says he has to pee, so then she tells him to pee right there, and if he doesn't, then they're going to do something to, and Neville has a scene where someone is trying to pee been so intense. And how they keep him from running away again is just brutal with the knives in his feet. And the stupid moment that really annoyed me was when he gets out, he's running away, but he climbs a tree. Just really stupid, but it's still an acceptable form of stupid. But the real fucked up angle of this movie is the fact that she drills a hole into his skull and is going to pour boiling water into his brains to the point where it just turns to mush and he just turns into a brain dead zombie. That whole idea is horrific. It is some of the most terrifying, It really gets under your skin, and then we see that she's done this to a bunch of other guys, and she has a basement filled with these zombie-like creatures who are just guys that she tormented and turned their brain to smush. Like, that is just evil. Like, I was on the edge of my seat up until that point, but at that point, like, I was just clenching on, like, holy shit. I forgot just how messed up this movie is. Like, that is such a horrific idea. I do think they did a good job of how he got up there and he pushed the dad in, which was a great moment. And then how he's now stuck in the basement with these zombie-like guys. I think they did a good job with that because if he was still tied up for the rest of the movie, I would have gotten tired of it. So they found a way to keep the movie feeling fresh. And also the one moment at the end where I thought something was going to happen was the moment where the girlfriend's getting chased by Lola and he's heading that way with a police car. And it looked like that they were going to have an ending where he hits her with the police car and they were going for a dark ending. And I'm really glad they didn't go that route. For a character who's gone through as much as him, you want him to have a happy ending here. So, yes, those are my thoughts on The Loved Ones. Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.